Into Book 101 review. Book 101 is about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a top 1% most cited cardiologist, and of course, upcoming author too, and the author of the book Wisdom from Two Worlds. None other than Dr. Hosen Kiat. Welcome, Dr. Hassan, our Book 101 review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Thank you, Daniel. Pleasure meeting you and talk to you this morning. And yeah, an Indonesian-born Asian, and I grew up in Jakarta and came to Australia and did my high school and university and education in Melbourne. And yes, I'm a cardiologist. I've been practicing cardiology for quite a few decades now. And I've been a medical researcher for as many years as I'm a cardiologist. And yes, I've written a book just so that I could help to contribute to the lay education. And the book is also some sort of a semi autobiography that somewhat integrates what I believe in and what I practice in real life.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Hassan. Thank you. So today let's talk about your upcoming book. The title Wisdom from Two Worlds is evocative. Could you paint a picture of us for us what these two worlds represent in your life and what is the catalytic moment that made you realize you were operating from this unique dual perspective?
Well, first up, there is no catalytic moment. It's all a very gradual imbibement of the two worlds. The first 15 years of my life, the formative years of my life, the whole ecosystem of that life was entirely east in Indonesia, Jakarta. For example, this is something that I noticed when I arrived in Australia. Like at that time, we held hands, as young little boys. It's okay. We held hands going out. We put our hands on the shoulder of a mate walking on the streets. And even in the book, I talked about holding my cousin's hand when we were in a very chaotic moment during a demonstration, and and we were just running around holding hands. But of course, coming to Australia, holding hand with another boy, another man, uh, was not particularly uh, popular. And later on, now, the Western science has proven that this sort of lack of connection or lack of cultural approved connection among males showed up as 3 times higher suicide rate, for example, among males. So this sort of connection as a very important factor for good health or for overall mortality, life span is very, very important. And yet, as a tradition, the connection between males and the connection between females were a lot more equal in Asian community compared to the Western community. And that's just one example of that difference between East and West. And then when I arrived in Australia at the age of 15 on my own, my first port of call was living with Miss Little, an Australian spinster, 70 odd years old. I even never knew her last name. That's how Western it was. And therefore, this sort of contrast, of course, gradually I imbibed the West into the East, and eventually I grew up as a fused person with an Eastern and Western culture in my day to day fabric of my life.
You describe finding wisdom from both worlds. Was there ever a time when these two worlds were in direct conflict, creating more confusion than clarity? How does you navigate that, Mr.
Yeah,
Dr. Hosen?
it's there are quite a few, um, but as a doctor, one really stands out. In Eastern culture, we generally are very caring for the elderly to the point that we don't want to tell them bad news about them. So even an elderly mother of an Asian uh, family is diagnosed with cancer, for example, the children often wouldn't want the doctors to tell the patient that she has cancer because that's very bad news. And they would just say something like, "Oh, you've got some information, you'll be fine," etc. While as a Western educated doctor, we are obliged to tell the patient the truth, and therefore it could be a difficult conflict between us having to be always honest with patient versus the respect that we have to impart on the family's wishes that they do not want the diagnosis told. So that's the sort of tension that sometimes we can see between East and West, operating in a largely, of course, here Western culture.
Many people feel caught between different cultures, generations, and belief systems. How do you hope your book helps them reframe the feeling from one being torn to one of being enriched? Dr. Hassan.
Yeah, it's everyone is different. And I think it is very important that everyone adopts a habit or a tradition or a trait that suits them. So my book is giving that option, giving that smorgasbord of Eastern and Western options for my readers to read and pick up what they think fit them and take these habits with them to improve their health, to improve their sense of well being, and hopefully by doing that, to increase their lifespan. And there is certainly no one size fit all formula. In my book, it is very clear that, for example, medicine ultimately is all personalized. There is no such thing as community health when it comes to individual patient that I see. Everyone is different, and therefore everyone has to have their own formula for health.
If you had to distill a single most valuable lesson from the first world and the single most valuable from the second, what would they be, Dr. Hassan?
It will be that um, there is nothing unique about the East, neither there's nothing unique about the West, and that everything is better when they can be tolerated and respected, and therefore the fusion of both may best benefit, better benefit us than saying, I only want Western medicine or I only want Eastern medicine. It is a lot better to be open minded to say, what is the best evidence based treatment or prevention I can use? As long as the evidence based, doesn't matter where it comes from, whether from the East or from the West.
On the personal journey and identity, Dr. Hassan, the journey between worlds often forces a reevaluation of identity. How did writing this book change your own understanding of who you are, and did you discover a fluid identity that is blend of the two?
I didn't change identity by writing the book, and it only reinforces that yes, I came from the two worlds, and I've been privileged enough to be exposed to the fabric or ecosystem of both worlds, and I would like to just share uh, these experiences and the fact that my Western medicine training is absolutely great, but it is not perfect. And therefore, by combining the Eastern or other medical cultures, I think and I hope I will continue to show that we can better serve our population individually or as a whole by using the best evidence based medicine from both worlds.
Dr. Hosen, can you share a poignant story from the book where you felt like an outsider in one of your worlds and how the experience or how that experience of otherness ultimately become a source of strength?
Yeah, in my book, I did describe a few, and one of them came to mind was when I was in high school in a train, chatting with a passenger. She was about my age, and a big, uh, huge Caucasian guy wasn't very happy with that and started approaching me. And I stood my ground, and that moment obviously was quite. Yeah, quite hard for me, but I stood cool. And certainly at the age of 15, when I first came to Australia, it was definitely subconscious that I was different. And therefore, in my book, I described that I was probably the first 15-year-old Asian that hit the gym in Melbourne. At that time, gym was very rudimentary, like in a shed. At a council building or something like that. But I think that was subconscious that I think I knew that I was different, I was smaller, I need to be stronger to fit in. And that's probably one of the most sort of memorable moments that I was different.
What was the most difficult personal truth or vulnerability you had to confront while writing this book? What was a chapter or section that particularly challenging to put on the page?
Yeah, Daniel, I think the most challenging probably was trying to put that memory of resuscitating my father in an emergency room of a local community hospital in the middle of the night, uh, conducting as a cardiologist conducting the resuscitation of the whole team, trying to revive my dad who had a cardiac arrest. And that was pretty hard because I was the only son in the family, and yet I was the only cardiologist at that time. And the fact that eventually it was unsuccessful resuscitation, that we didn't revive him, was a very yeah a difficult experience that I suppressed for many years, that I articulated in the chapter as a lesson that made people more resilient if they can survive an adversity.
Dr. Hosen, was there a specific mentor, figure, or a bridge person in your life who helped you navigate the space between the two worlds? And what was the greatest gift to you?
Yeah, um, there are people like Nelson Mandela, Winston Churchill, who are my, in a sense, mentors that I learn from them about connection and about purpose. That with connection and purpose, and resilience, you can really achieve almost anything you want. One of my mentors also is a guy called Wayne Dyer. He passed away several years ago, and he, in fact, as a Westerner, was the one that taught me most about Eastern philosophies um, that I imbibed through my life without knowing the background of these philosophies. And he was a great mentor that connects these two worlds.
Dr. Hosen, as 1% most cited cardiologist, as well as a debut author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My short term goal is to continue my current public education platforms on my YouTube videos and Instagram and website, because I like to share this responsibility of being a real, in the sense that I guess authority, uh, not that I disrespect influencers, absolutely with no background talking anything about health, but I feel that at least I have had that training to be able to share this health knowledge with the community at large worldwide. And in the long term, I hope that I can provide more sustainable legacy to perpetuate this sort of public education by true experts in different fields to share the burden of giving real evidence-based education to public instead of the so-called hacks, quick hacks, etc., that a lot of influencers now bombard the social media in.
Good luck to your goals, Dr. Hassan, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh, no one should be like me. They should be like themselves, and they should find their own purpose. They should be careful uh, not to be isolated. They should try to have good connection instead of pursuing isolation. And yeah, they should look after themselves in their physical activities, in their rest, and in their nutrition. And these are the five, the so-called Power Five, that I talk a lot about in the book, that ensure that you can have a healthy life. Because if there's only one advice, is that I know from seeing hundreds of thousands of patients, to be healthy, then you can do anything you want. If you're unhealthy, doesn't matter how much money, doesn't matter how much support, you will have a compromised life.
Thank you for that advice, Dr. Hassan. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Sorry,
Can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
a book influencer.
Yes, things that influence your journey, like the one you told us a while ago.
Like what thing? Sorry.
Anything that books that make you a cardiologist or make you an author, inspired you to be an author. Do you have one?
Okay. Um, why I wrote this book?
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote this book because it is part of my responsibility in my own mind, that I need to provide a trustworthy social media platform for the public, so that I could somewhat, in a small way, counter the massive, to me, often irresponsible social influencer so called health advice. And too many patients of mine have urged me to do so. Um, and therefore, I wrote this book.
You talk about synthesizing wisdom. Can you give us a concrete example of a modern day problem or personal dilemma where applying a principle from one world failed, but applying a blended perspective from both led to a breakthrough?
Yeah. Yes, certainly in medicine, often people take a very strong stand. There is an organization in Australia called Friends in Medicine, and these are thousands of academics, specialist doctors who promote that Western medicine is probably the only legitimate medicine, and alternative or other medicine may not, should not be taught at the university levels. To me, that's probably short-sighted, and I feel that I like what I said before. Any medicine, as long as it's evidence-based and turn out to be safe and ethical, should be offered to every patient for their best benefits. And I think that's one of the most difficult things to break through in Western culture, uh, especially among the academics. And I personally have done that much research. As you said, I'm ranked in the top 1% in terms of research productivities uh, in the Western research, that is. And therefore, I'm not ashamed of saying that, yes, I'm now engaging in Eastern medicine research as well, because I want to explore further into the evidence of Eastern medicine. For example, I know as I grew up, when someone got sick and is convalescing, they would be provided with this meat, beef broth, that is minced meat cut off and then the juice squeezed off uh, for convalescence as soup. And as it turned out, it is so evidence based because when you're recovering, you don't need a lot of carbohydrates, you don't need a lot of fat, but you need nutrients and protein. And the beef broth certainly will offer you that. And therefore, all this traditional, so called traditional wisdom now more and more have been shown by Western medical research that they are indeed very useful. And therefore, one of my jobs is to provide this research in traditional medicine, so-called, which is in fact, there's no such thing as traditional medicine because, or there's no such thing as complementary medicine. And I emphasize that in the book because in China, complementary medicine is Western medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine is the proper medicine. So the so-called calling other people complementary medicine is fair just for nomenclature, but in fact, complementary medicine is just relative to what you are used to. So my job is to look at other medicine and see if there are some that we can subject them to robust research and show that they are very good.
Dr. Hosen, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I invite you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season. I'm a book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season. I'm a food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 in its fourth season. Science 101, sex 101 in its fourth third season, and my baby podcast Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Bible Verses 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Hosen, the book suggests you created a unique framework for understanding. If you could have every reader adopt one daily practice of mindset from this framework, what would it be and why?
Adopt the 5 principles of living healthy, take care of nutrition, rest, These are the two essential aspects of life. You cannot live without eating, and you cannot live without resting. But if you eat well and rest well, that will help a lot more. Third is movement. The more you move, the better it is. A little movement is better than no movement, and therefore you don't have to go to the gym every day, but you should move as much as you can. And the fourth is connection. As I said before, this has been more and more proven as a very, very strong risk factor if you don't have enough connection or if you're socially isolated. And the fifth one is a very potent one, is that continue to have a purpose in your life. And that will ensure that you live well and live long.
You live well for sure, Dr. Hosen Kiat. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sorry.
Can you please invite our listeners, Dr.
Oh,
Hosen, to buy your upcoming book?
yep, you're most welcome to. And certainly, our book will be out in late November and will be available in bookshops. It is published in the States, but will be available worldwide in Amazon, in Kindles, electronic formats. Yeah, look into it. Wisdom from Two Worlds. Thanks, Daniel.
You are most welcome, Dr. Hussein. And can you please support Mr. Hassan Kiat? Because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Dr. Hassan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Pleasure.
What can people see you soon?